Hi, everybody. It's Dana Stengel, and I am here saying hello, and we are getting ready to talk about mountain lions. I'm going to work on my light here for a second. I think that's a little crazy. Is that better? It's not even coming from there. I don't know. All right. We're not going to work on lighting much longer. So, I'm Dana Stengel. This is Taronga Ranch's regular program. If you love to learn and talk about native wildlife in California, this is the place for you. And we're here every Thursday at 6 o'clock, and we just change up our topics every week. So I'm glad you can join us today, and hopefully you will join us in the future. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, if you could subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it. Because once we get 1,000 subscribers, we can take our show on the road, and I can YouTube live with my phone, and we can do field trips, which I'm super excited about. So if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. So today we are just going to do a little Q&A about local mountain lions, right? A lot of people don't know the story of how Taronga Ranch changed direction. I know, you weren't ready for that, were you? Well, I'm going to share it. We used to be a reptile rescue. We started off teaching people about how big iguanas get, right? Before they bring them home and they get to be 6 feet long. And then one day in my very community, someone looked outside their window and they saw a mountain lion, and they called 911, and Fish and Wildlife came out and they tried to scare him out of the area, but he wouldn't move. And they wound up at the end of the story shooting him dead. And it was a very sad day. There was a little bit of a silver lining to that story, and that is that right after that event, AB 132 was passed in California, making it illegal to shoot a mountain lion that is not posing a public challenge or threat, right? So, when that happened, I was like, wow, I could see there could be a mountain lion in my backyard. What would I do? How do people know what to do? So that's when I decided it was time to figure out a way to get the word out about what we should or should not do when we encounter wildlife, particularly in the urban environment where we're not expecting it, right? So we've got bears. That's not really in the urban environment, but it's definitely in the general vicinity. And we've got mountain lions. And we certainly have things like coyotes and raccoons. And as a teacher, I realized they weren't teaching about this in school. I even realized that when I went to the zoo, what I learned about there and what I wound up doing was hanging out with the giraffes and the zebras and the chimpanzees. I wasn't learning more about mountain lions or coyotes. So I sort of decided to just focus in that general area, and I have not looked back. So this week's special is dedicated to that mountain lion that changed our direction and really showed us what was something important to focus on. So today we're going to answer these questions. I'm just going to throw them out at you so you know where we're going, where we're headed. Where are they? Why are they here? What do they eat? How do they help the ecosystem? What are the chances I will see one? What do I do if I see one? How do I avoid seeing one? What challenges do they face in the LA area? How can I help them? So those are the things we're going to talk about briefly. And I hope you'll find it interesting and informative. And if you have any questions, you should totally throw them out there, and I will see them because this is live, and I will answer them, and it will be awesome. That's my story. So we're going to start off with, where are they? These mountain lions are in the less urban areas, generally speaking, like the outskirts of LA, like the Angeles National Forest, right? And the Santa Monica Mountains, right? Except we do have one mountain lion who has sort of bucked the system and has been able to do things that other mountain lions have been unable to do successfully. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. That is my favorite guy whose t-shirt I'm wearing today. This is the P22 t-shirt. Woo! So, P22 lives in Griffith Park, right? Where there are people and there's a zoo. We all know that story. There's residences, there's joggers, there's picnickers with picnic baskets. There's everything, right? So how is it that this guy that's living in the middle of Griffith Park is not interacting with people on a regular basis, right? So we even have a Griffith Park mountain lion, and most of the people that frequent Griffith Park have not had the opportunity to see him, because what are your chances of seeing a mountain lion? That was on our list. Not very good. In fact, about 90% of mountain lion sightings are actually bobcats. I know, right? Bobcats are big and they're unexpected, and depending on how far away you are, they can look even bigger. The main difference between a faraway cat, if it's a bobcat or a mountain lion, you can easily tell by the length of the tail. So if the tail is kind of short and it keeps on moving all the time, that's Mr. Bobcat. And if it's a long tail and a much bigger animal, like bigger than a dog, than a big dog, then it's a mountain lion. And a lot of times people get confused because you're way more likely to see a bobcat during the day when people are out seeing these animals than you are a mountain lion. Because our mountain lions in the LA area are very nocturnal. Because there's so much action around them, they don't come out until like 10 o'clock at night, maybe later, and they finish their nightly explorations maybe a little bit earlier than their rural counterparts might do. They might be done by 3 instead of 5. And that's just a general rule. Everything I say, there's going to be some mountain lion somewhere that's going to prove me wrong. But in general, they're very shy of humans. If they know you're in the area, they are going to try to avoid that at all costs. They are not interested in us. In fact, they're interested in being far away from us. And that's why you really only find them on the outskirts, not on the inner city islands like you're going to find the coyotes and the raccoons. But there is a history of some of these animals being able to successfully get across a freeway. And when that happens, a new territory can be open depending on how many resources are there for him. Let's talk about the resources that the mountain lion needs. For one thing, his territory is usually pretty big, but we're learning with these urban mountain lions that they can subsist on less. For example, P22 in Griffith Park, he's subsisting on a smaller territory than biologists would ordinarily say was good for a mountain lion. So he's sort of proving some things to us about mountain lion territory. Another thing that mountain lions need in their territory is, of course, water. But the main thing would be deer. That is their favorite food, and they depend on a supply of deer. And so that would be one of the big reasons why you're not going to find a mountain lion in the more urban areas, because you're not going to find deer there. But where you can find deer, you know, there, especially in our area, there's a good chance there's a mountain lion around. Maybe just one, though, because we are running out of them. And I'm going to talk about that too. So where are they? We talked about that. Why are they there? And what do they eat? We talked about that. Their resources are there. Their food is there. Their main food, again, is the deer. However, I would like to stress the importance of wildlife being opportunistic. Now, if a mountain lion is hungry, and if he happens to be going near someone's backyard and their large dog is left out overnight, he might go for it. He has gone for it. That is something a mountain lion will do. So it's sort of up to us to make sure we bring in our pets at night so they don't become mountain lion food. How do they help the ecosystem? I feel like I want to jump back to that at the end because that's probably my favorite story. What are the chances I will see one? We covered that. What do I do if I see one? That is a super great question. So what do you do if you see one? Well, again, the chances that you're going to see one, super minimal, super minimal. But if you see one, don't turn your back. That's the number one thing you don't do. Don't try to run away. You could back away slowly, right? Hopefully, if you're hiking, you're carrying a humane hazing device with you. And it could be a noisemaker. It could be a little air horn, which I used to have one right around here, but now I can't find it. But you all know what my little air horn looks like. I know you do, and I know you like it. And just for kicks, just for fun, I'm just going to stress the importance of how much noise can deter wildlife. And am I really going to go hiking with a cowbell? No, I'm not, but I could certainly annoy a mountain lion with any kind of noise I decide to bring with me. Another hazing mountain lion tip, if I happen to be hiking and I'm afraid, and this would work for literally any wildlife. If you hike, carry an umbrella with a handle, right? Because if you get lost, you're going to have some shade. If it rains, you're covered. You could get the really small ones that are easy to carry with you, right? Or you could have some fun like me and bring your big umbrella with you. And if you see scary wildlife, you just... Are you scared yet? See? So, scaring wildlife just involves doing something unexpected and making yourself appear bigger and scarier than you are. Pretty easy, right? So, what else are we going to talk about? Oh, let me just share some information about mountain lions with you, some super basic info. This is a skull of a mountain lion. Isn't that cool? I'll put it next to my skull. It's pretty big. It's pretty big. You can see these teeth. He is an obligate carnivore. He has to eat meat. There aren't any vegan mountain lions, unfortunately, even though they eat herbivores. Look at that nose pattern. Do you see how much is going on there? This is definitely an animal that navigates his world with smell. He can smell anything. You can smell when your dog was in your yard. He knows when the deer went by last. He can tell. And he's unlike the wolf, right? Like we've heard the stories of the wolves who eat the weak and they hunt the weak and the old. Not the mountain lion. The mountain lion is completely opportunistic. He will take whatever he can find. And his beauty is that because they know he's coming, because deer also have great noses, they keep moving, right? We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. This, I love to talk about track and sign. This is a sample of some mountain lion poop. It's a little small, but you can see the segments and you can see how it tapers off on the edge, a little bit like regular cat scat. Huh? That's kind of fun. No, it's not real. It's rubber. I'm only half crazy, you guys. Come on now. You know that. So anyway, that's what it might look like. And then one of my favorite things to talk about also is this beautiful print. This is this is a great example of a large feline print. And this is a mountain lion. And one of the things I want you to just see on this particular example is that there's no claw marks. Because when the cat walks, he doesn't like click-clack on the floor. He retracts his claws and he pads along the floor, right? But the dog, click-clack, right? Because his claws are out because he cannot retract them. So when you're looking at a feline print, most of the time, one of the ways you can tell that it's a feline print is that it doesn't have those claw marks on it. Every now and then, depending on the substrate, depending on how the animal walks, you might see one though. So again, like I said before, everybody can prove me wrong. And on that note, I just want to take a minute. My friend Kim Cabrera at Bear Tracker has done this amazing, here's an example. So what makes this a dog print, right? So look at this lobe, and I'm gonna hold the cat print next to it just so you can see. I'm trying to do it with one hand. I love that. A hungry mountain lion. Wow, can hear it 10 miles away. His ears are that good. I'm gonna have to look that up. I love that. All right. Okay, so we've got a canine print right here. In fact, that's coyote, not dog, and I'll tell you the difference in a minute. This is feline. Now, when I do this, you can totally see the differences, right? I want you to notice how far apart these pads are compared to these. I also want you to notice the shape of the lobe here. See that? It's like a funny nose. And then see this? It's a funnier nose. But this has 2 lobes at the bottom. This has 3. Dog, cat, right? So claws, canine, and lobe like this canine, right? And now I'm going to go a step further. Well, no, I'm not. But anyway, that's a coyote. Dog's going to be a little more splayed. Coyote, dog, right? And then on this, the way you could tell the difference between a bobcat, a mountain lion, or a house cat is mostly going to be based on size and also how far did it go into the ground, how heavy was the animal, but mostly size. And when we take pictures of these prints, when we're out finding them, we usually put a ruler next to it so we can tell exactly how big it is, and then that helps us decide who did it, right? All right, where is my list of questions again so we get back to where we're going? Okay, how do I avoid seeing one? We talked about that. Here's one. What challenges do they face in the LA area? So many, you guys. So first of all, if they are predating upon livestock that someone has left outside unprotected, and they take that livestock that's just out there waiting for them, people can file a report with Fish and Wildlife, and that can be scary. So that's one of the things. Running out of habitat because of development, that's another one. Eating animals that have been exposed to rodenticide, that's a big challenge for mountain lions in the LA area. But the biggest one that I know of is the fact that the animals in Los Angeles are geographically separated by freeways, okay? So I'm gonna use an example from one of my favorite books. I use this one with kids, but what's cool about this book, not only does, if you purchase this book, P22 The Journey, all of the proceeds go to the crossing that we're gonna talk about in a minute, but also the front part is just amazing illustrations and a beautiful story for kids about how P22 got to Griffith Park. But the back has all kinds of like adult-worthy, super cool information about not only the cats, but the people that help them. So one of my favorite parts of this book is this map. And there's 2 things I like about this map. The first one is it shows P22's journey and how he crossed freeways and stuff, right? Pretty amazing. But what I also like about this one is where I want you to look at these orangey yellow lines, right? It almost looks like state borders or something, right? Those are our freeways. And our freeways here in the LA area are 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 lanes across. And even in the middle of the night, it's super difficult for a mountain lion to get across there. all those freeways. And it's really hard for all of wildlife to get across those freeways. So what happens is you wind up getting these little genetic groups, and they're genetically different from the groups across the freeway. Not by a lot, just a little, right? And the problem is mountain lions, as they grow up, you've seen the movies, you know about lions. They need that big territory. And when the baby gets to a certain age, they got to push them along. It's time to go. It's time to keep moving on. So where can they go, right? They are literally pushed, sometimes by their own father, to the freeway. And there they are. They've got to make a decision. What are they going to do? So a lot of them will try to cross the freeway, and a lot of them don't make it. In fact, most of them don't make it. And if they do, then they could, potentially be part of that breeding community in that area, right? But what's happening is they're not really able to do this as much as they need to, genetically speaking. And the gene pool of the mountain lions in the LA area is getting smaller and smaller. We have less individuals, fires, all kinds of crazy things. But nature will make it so that there are less individuals, and if they aren't able to reproduce, and if they aren't able to get to a territory away from where their parents are, they're not going to live. So what's happening? So then the question is, one of the questions is, what can we do? And the great news is the National Wildlife Federation, along with Caltrans, along with a lot of other amazing organizations and donors, are working really hard to build an overpass in Agoura at Liberty Canyon that will make the difference for all sorts of wildlife, everything from mountain lions to deer to coyotes to lizards. It will open up a whole new area and a whole new gene pool. So that brings us to the final question, which was, how can I help them? You can help them in so many ways. You can help just by keeping your dog on a leash when you're walking him. You can help by bringing your dogs in overnight. Those things help because then they're not considered a problem animal. If they don't have anything in the yard to get, they're not a problem. You can also, just directly donate to the campaign. And if you want to know more about it, it's SaveLACougars.org. And no, it's not about those cougars, crazy kids. You crazy cats and little kittens. I always wanted to say that. This was my episode to say that. Hey, you crazy cats and little kittens. Anyway, so you can help them by being aware of what's going on with them. You can help them by donating to the campaign. You can help them by not using rodenticide. You can help them by telling other people not to use rodenticide. There are a variety of ways to engage. So, but mostly you can help them by not calling 911 when you see one, because it is not a crime to be wildlife where you live, right? That is the story that I have today. If you are not already a subscriber, please subscribe. We need you, and we promise not to overwhelm you with stuff. We go live 2 times a week, Tuesdays at 3 for kids, Thursdays at 6 for adults. And we also have, you can see I've got a big mess behind me today. We have a virtual tracking camp going on coming up in July. We have 2 sessions for kids and 1 mini camp for adults and kids and whoever wants to be there, because you're never too old to dissect an owl pellet, right? So just so you know, at my camp, you get the box delivered to you with all the cool materials you need, and you make an owl pellet. What? Because you dissect them and you learn all about the bones in rodents, and we make tracking boxes so we can figure out who is in our backyard, and we don't need a camera for that because we are old school cool. And that is the story on that. So and you can find information on Facebook or just email me at info@taringaranch.org. Anyway, if nobody has any questions, I just want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me today for a few minutes. And if you ever do have any questions, feel free to send them along. And we're going to take next week off because it's everybody else's, right? Let's take a break. And we'll be back the week after that. I'm pretty sure that's what the schedule says. The schedule's on Facebook, and I'm going to try to stick to it as best I can. So anyway, thank you again, and I'm out. See you next week or next time, whenever that is. Mwah.